Welcome to the TBD podcast. This is your host, Allison Lessard. Let's get into it. Hey, you guys, welcome back. So this episode felt important to record because it's been so helpful for me. So I really wanted to share this with you guys. Long story short, just to keep it brief for those that are new here, I've been in the, spiritual growth and personal development industry now in the wellness industry for over a decade. And I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people one-to-one and thousands of people online. And relationship healing was one of the ways that I got started when I got onto YouTube. It was talking about conscious relationship and spiritual growth. And what I've learned, especially over the last couple of years, and where I'm at with this now, is very much about finding ways to process your feelings and your experience without getting caught up in the stories and the narratives that create so much suffering. Because ultimately it's the story about the feeling that you're having or the story about the experience that you're having that's creating pain over time. That's where the pain comes from, actually. And so it might be a momentary pain, like if you experience something physical, yeah, in that instance you might feel physical pain. But if it's prolonged and chronic and long-standing, it's in our minds. We need to address the mind. And that's a big statement to make, and I don't have to break it all down in this episode, but I'm going to start with just a little bit so I'm studying Tibetan Buddhism, and you don't have to be Buddhist, right? I'm just applying this to my work now because it just makes sense to me. It's a lineage that's been around for thousands of years and tools that they work if you work them. That's why it's still here. That's why it's still relevant all these years later. When it comes to your relationships, the reason why I was attracted to this lineage of Buddhism is because it's about radical personal responsibility, which means the world and the way you're experiencing the world, the way that you're perceiving the world, and this includes all of your relationships, is coming from you. It's coming from your mind. Now, if that's true, if you don't like the experience that you're having, it means it can change because how you're seeing it might be distorted. And so when you get into your own mind and you start to shift how your mind is perceiving the world, your external world will change. It will, because it's the law of karma. Now that I've experienced multiple, actual tangible experiences of this, I know it to be true. But you got to try it for yourself. Don't take it from me. Don't take my word for it. Try. If you guys want to get started, by the way, and you totally have no concept of what I'm talking about with any Buddhism or anything, you can get a little introductory with Bliss. It's a free class that I did on relationship healing through the power of meditation. And so how to literally use any relationship to raise your consciousness and use it as a teacher and use it as a way to grow spiritually. So that is on my website. You can go to the link in the podcast notes and get to my site, and it's right on the homepage. You can opt in for that 60-minute free class. Just as a side note, I just figured I'd throw that in there because it actually is relevant. So back to relationship healing and creative alchemy. If your relationships are happening as a result of how you're perceiving people, then your relationships can massively improve when you change your own mind and the way that your mind is operating, the way the neurons are firing, and just generally speaking, if you apply in Tibetan Buddhism, what I'm studying, the foundation of it is karma and emptiness. And I won't get into a whole talk about what that is, but essentially it's if things are empty of a nature, self-existent nature, meaning stuff's coming from you. And karma, we'll just say that's the seeds that you're planting. And also later, as they grow, what you're experiencing, right? Because karma expands. It's you plant an apple seed, you're going to grow apples later, right? If you plant, love, you're going to experience more love later. If you plant generosity, you're going to experience more abundance and more generosity from others later. Okay. So this is very simplified. When it comes to how are we going to heal in our relationships? Like I said, there's a million different ways. You can do therapy. You can go get a massage. You can do somatic healing. You can do breath work. You can do XYZ. And all those things are valid. Go for it. I've tried so many things. When it came to creative expression for me, it felt really good because I realized I wasn't needing to get into the story of how I was feeling towards a specific person. I was able to just turn it into something else. And like I said, maybe you turn that. How much beautiful art is born from relationship struggles, you know what I mean? And it doesn't always have to be pain. You could be creating from joy. It doesn't have to be from a breakup or from grief or from an ending. Like you could literally be in a gorgeous experience and then create from there and just enjoy the sake of creating. But for a lot of people that I work with, they're struggling. And so they come to me and they're like, my relationships are shitty. I'm not getting along with people, or I really want a romantic partner, but it's not working out for me, or I haven't dated in 10 years, or I'm always attracted to people who are unavailable and run away from me. I don't know, whatever the issue is, right? Pick one. I'm sure you've got one. We all do. And so for me, like a big pattern was definitely, I would say like for me, the biggest things that I've been healing in relationship have been my own reactivity. So I used to be in the past really reactive, really hot tempered. Like I'm a pretty quiet person actually behind the scenes. I'm pretty introverted. I like to spend a lot of time by myself. Like I like my alone time. I'm a homebody, so I'm fairly quiet. But when it came to being activated in relationship and getting upset, I used to be I had kind of an explosive temper. And I could go from like 0 to 100. And I didn't really know how to regulate my emotions. I didn't know how to regulate my anger, my frustration, my impatience. I didn't have a lot of patience with people. My mouth would just move faster than my brain was. And it caused a lot of problems in the past, And the more self-aware I became, and the more obviously that I incorporated things like meditation, I became much less reactive. But on top of that, I became a lot more aware of me, of my own behavior, of my own thought patterns, of the things that were repeating, why certain cycles were repeating. And this is the thing. The quality of your relationships is a byproduct of the relationship you have with yourself, your own level of self-awareness, emotional intelligence. Your own level of consciousness, where you're at. And it's okay, wherever you are, it's perfect. That's where you're meant to be. But just know that as you raise your consciousness, as you become more self-aware and more loving and more compassionate with yourself and able to hold that kind of space for your feelings and for your stuff, you're able to be there for you. Your relationships are going to improve. Like, how could they not improve if you're giving yourself that level of love and compassion and devotion? Again, you're planting those seeds through your actions, through the way that your mind is moving, through, the way that you are showing up in the world. And so by law, like by universal law, you're going to be forced to experience that later in a good way. You know what I mean? So if emotions are just energy, they need an outlet. And so today we're going to talk about using creativity as an outlet and how this can really help you, because maybe you're not aware yet, or maybe you've never tried it. So rather than directing all your frustration, anger, disappointment, sadness, irritation, loneliness, impatience, whatever it is, at your love interest, at your partner, at your family members, at your clients, if you have a business, what if you just made art instead? And this does not need, number one, let's get a few things clear. You don't need to be an artist to benefit from this, okay? Or feel that label applies to you. Number two, nobody needs to see anything that you're creating. This is literally for you. This is your own process. So call it trash art, call it what you will. This is expression. It's just creative expression and creative exploration, creative playtime. Nobody needs to see it. You're just acting as a vessel for these emotions, this energy to move through you, creating pathway, right? Creative pathway for the energy to transform and literally be transmuted. Like I said, maybe you turn that pain into power, into love, into beauty, into joy. Let's also note here that, excuse me, your creative energy is your life force energy. Like literally in Chinese medicine, they call it Jing, your life force. So like if you have no more life force, you die. And so how are you using your life force? Because that's also your creative energy. And I think like a lot of us, especially as adults and especially as like people with adulting, like we've got responsibilities, we've got obligations. A lot of us were taught or brought up to think that creativity is frivolous. It's play, it's for kids. It should just be a hobby, if that, maybe not even. And so we don't end up utilizing it at all as an outlet. It just gets tabled, put on the back burner, or ignored completely. And, for me, maybe I'm blessed in a way because my business is creative. So whether I like it or not, I have to create things to make money, right? It's my livelihood. So I have to create the branding, the marketing, the program itself, the concept. I have to birth the concept. I have to create the whole program around it. And then I have to sell it. And then I have to facilitate it. So it's like my job in essence is creative. And I like it. You know what I mean? I'm a creative person, so that works for me. It can be hard sometimes, but ultimately that has been a big creative outlet for me. Not everybody has that. Some people work at a corporate job or really analytical, let's say, really left-brained, and there isn't a lot of space for creative expression. And then they get home and they're tired and then blah, blah, blah. My phone, my dinner, my kids, my this, my that. And so when it comes to your relationships, how you're relating to other people is based in how you relate with yourself. So I would say the number one thing before we get into more is where are you leaking energy? Because think about it. Your relationships are a byproduct of your relationship with you. And a lot of times when we're frustrated or disappointed or we're struggling with our relationships, it's because there's something that we're not seeing or something that we're avoiding dealing with in our own experience. And so we might just be usually it's unconscious. People are unconsciously projecting their own self-frustration onto their partner or the people in their lives, instead of actually carving out the space to be with yourself, to process your own feelings before you either discuss them with other people or blame other people. The blame game is a no-go for me. The blame game is bye-bye. If I catch myself in a moment of I want to play the victim, I immediately catch myself now, because I know I know for myself that's not true, because I do believe that's why I'm studying the Buddhism. I do believe that my world is a projection of my mind. And I'll just make an example with an ex of yours, right? If things were not empty of a nature, and again, you can take more classes, and I'm going to be teaching this. I'm going to be giving more Dharma talks, and I'm going to explain these things more deeply as we go into the year, because I'm being mentored and I'm learning on the side, behind the scenes. Quietly, I've been doing that over the last several months. So if things are empty of a nature, meaning what we're experiencing is coming from us, if that weren't true, then take your ex-partner, an ex of yours. Maybe you're on good terms, maybe you're not. If things were not empty of a nature, every single person in the world would have the exact same experience of your ex. But that's not true, right? Because you had your experience. Maybe the person that they're with now, or blah, 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 whatever the story is, has a totally different experience of them. So how could they have a fixed nature if different people are having a different experience of them? So let's just use that as the example. That's why this is so powerful, because I have experienced in my life with family members, romantic partners, friends, clients, I've experienced that same exact person having a very, let's say, tumultuous or painful experience with that person. And now, as I've done, quote unquote, the work, these people aren't doing the work with me necessarily. Who knows what they're up to? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. The more that I do it for me, the more that I perceive them differently, because I'm changing from the inside out, I'm having totally different experiences, improved, healthier, happier, more loving, more compassionate relationships with all of these people. That's not by accident, you guys. So just know that this is possible for you too. I know that sometimes people don't believe it until they see it, which is why I'm don't ever take people's words at face value without trying it for yourself. Go try. What I love about the tradition that I'm learning and the lineage of Buddhism that I'm learning is that they encourage you to keep an open mind and try it for yourself. Do not just blindly follow people. Okay? So this is amazing, because you can literally alchemize relationships. You can turn one relationship into a new relationship because it's coming from you. So people that used to ghost me or ignore me or reject my intimacy or whatever are now coming towards me, wanting to be with me, loving me, being respectful, asking. It's completely 180. Again, this is not accidental. And so one of the ways beyond my meditation practice and those studies, and that's only been, I've been meditating for several years every single day, but the Buddhist stuff came in recently. But before that, I was already, taking responsibility for my stuff, being I'm the one that's creating my reality. Therefore, I better get my shit together internally, and not in a shame-based way, in a if there's a cause for something and a result, then I can change it. If I could change the seed, if I plant a new seed of what I actually want to, if I don't want to experience, if I'm experiencing deception and people are lying to me, for example, I have to really think where I've planted that seed already because I'm being forced to experience it. So, okay, when did I lie in the past? It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's just like, when was I dishonest? When did I like withhold information? When did I omit the truth? When did I When was I deceptive? Or when did I deceive myself? Okay, now I'm being forced to experience that. What if I plant a new seed of honesty? What if I start planting seeds of integrity and seeds of transparency and seeds of openness? Then I'm going to be having a different experience in the future, right? Boom. So I've been using creativity as a way to do this beyond my business, right? So just a little context here when it comes to, actually, no, let me cover a few more things before I get into that. Let's just ask yourself, like, where are you leaking energy? So if you're feeling drained in your relationships and you're struggling right now, just ask yourself, where are you distracted, overgiving? Where are you abandoning yourself? Where are you avoiding spending time with yourself? Where are you overly involved in other people's growth, but abandoning your own or ignoring your own growth? Not focused on you? Where are you like addicted to drama? I mean, my God, I still catch myself sometimes. I'm like, whoops, I'm getting way too entertained with XYZ. Like, this isn't good for me. Why am I doing this? Again, there's many ways we can escape ourselves. It's lots of forms of escapism. And again, it's usually unconscious. Where are you numbing out? Maybe you're scrolling mindlessly hours in front of the television, the screen time. Maybe it's like substances, Even alcohol is so normalized. And I don't have anything against drinking, but like, I don't drink a lot anymore. And it's pretty rare, actually. And I don't judge people that are doing it. Do whatever you want. But is it improving your experience? Or are you just like numbing? You know what I mean? Or are you just not wanting to be in your body? Because I know that when I drink a lot, I do not feel good, and now because I don't touch it much, I feel really shitty if I drink a lot. So it's like, ugh, why am I doing this? What's enjoyable about this? Minus the first like 15 minutes that you start to feel good and then you're like, oh, I'm going to have a hangover or whatever. So I don't know, not to digress, but I'm just saying there's a lot of ways that we can be out of our body and disembodied and not present and not actually feeling the stuff that we need to feel. But like I said in the beginning, when you don't attach a story to the emotion and you just let the emotion move through you, raw emotion without a narrative and a meaning to it, and it has to mean this, that, and the other thing, it's a totally different experience. Usually it passes through you a lot quicker. You don't suffer like you would otherwise. You're not ruminating on it. You're not like obsessively going over the same thing and making it mean something. Okay, like the feeling will pass. And then you're going to be like, wow, I feel better. I feel lighter. It doesn't have to be so complicated. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily. So all this energy that you might be leaking, just number one, identify where you're leaking energy. Where are you drained? Where is it not serving you? Be super fucking honest with yourself. If you really want to heal, you got to be really, really, really honest with yourself. All right. That's a practice in and of itself. Number two is knowing that all that energy that you're leaking out could be used for other things like creativity, like expressing it in a creative way instead. And then again, turning it into something else. Move that energy. So you can also use movement, exercise, meditation, breathing, go walk in nature, cleaning a house or your apartment. I don't know. There's a lot of ways that you can just move energy. Dancing, making poetry, music, right? Whatever. So that's like the first question you can ask yourself is, where are you leaking the energy? And just identify those things and be very honest with yourself. And number two, like asking yourself, when it comes to healing your relationships, like, are you centering your own joy now? Or are you waiting for the relationship to fix it for you? Like, oh, when I'm in a relationship, then I'll be happy. When me and my partner are better, then I'll be good. Then I'll be creative. Then I'll go do these things. Like, where are you putting the relationship before your own, like, self-care? How you're taking care of you is how you're showing up in relationship, right? And so I think that a lot of times we're like thinking that the peace and the happiness is like outside of us and that other people are responsible for it. And when it comes to like this creative alchemizing of your feelings, like I said, it comes down to you carving out the time, the space, and holding yourself responsible for doing that work. Because again, it's coming from you. And so the ways that this has really helped me, right? And this is where I want to mention my friend, a good friend of mine, handed me a book. He was in the entertainment industry. Still is, but at the time he was like deep in the music and entertainment and dance industry. he handed me The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and it's a 12-week book. And most of the people that pick up this book don't finish it. Most of the people pick it up and they just either look at it or they dabble, they do 2-3 weeks, they quit, or they just buy it, but they never actually pick it up and do it. And so I remember like moving through the book, a handful of times, but this was like before my spiritual awakening, what I would call my spiritual awakening, which was about 11 years ago. So it wasn't resonating at the same level, But when I picked it up more recently, over the last year, I've been going through a lot of changes in my business, and there was a really big void space where nothing was happening. I wasn't getting clients, programs weren't selling, it was this empty space, and it was scary. I was like, fuck, what next? Like I said, when you work for yourself, you support yourself and things don't sell and it's very quiet, it's like, holy shit, what am I going to do? So I just remember being in this point where I was like, I don't know what to do next. And not just that, there were some points in my relationship life that I really wanted to there were some loose ends that I felt needed a little bit more attention. And this is where I found the Buddhist stuff, which is amazing because things literally come when you're ready. Ask and you shall receive. When the student is ready, the teacher appears, and I shit you not, the teacher appeared. And I'm so grateful for my teacher. So I started to focus on my relationship stuff, and I was like, and again, having a creative outlet, for example, for me, I love music. I think music is the number one way that I process my feelings. I listen to songs, I make lists, I share them in my programs. I make musical lists for all my programs. And music is my parents are both musicians. I played instruments growing up. I've come from a family of artists, actually. So it's kind of ironic that I was surrounded by the arts and my parents were artists, and I still had such a block around creativity and being an artist as a profession for whatever reasons. That's a different podcast episode. But when it came to relationship stuff, I was like, all right, I joined this relationship immersion, which was a Buddhist immersion, to apply these principles to modern love life, right? And I was going through The Artist's Way, the book. I'm like, I really think I need this process now. And so as the weeks went on and I committed to actually finishing the book, number one, like I said in the beginning, it helps you take responsibility for your feelings. Because if you're not doing that, then you feel like a victim. And when you feel like a victim, you feel powerless. You think life is happening to me, my relationships are happening to me. There's nothing I can do to change them. It's outside of me. And I'm telling you guys right now that that's not true. So this is giving you major empowerment codes and tools. I promise you, I will freely give this to you. And this stuff is free too. That's why, I said, the Buddhist stuff is great because it's all online. They're not gatekeeping. There are some secret teachings that I'm sure, that happen later, but in terms of the basics, it's all out there, you guys, free. It's just if it will resonate and land when you're ready, if you're ready. But when it comes to the creativity, taking responsibility, numero uno, for your feelings. Number two, to transform these emotions so they're not festering in you and creating drama and unnecessary pain in your relationships or dis-ease in your body, which does happen. It created more space for love and compassion and understanding in my relationships. I was purifying all of this dense energy by using music. I use, my God, so many things. Pinterest. Obviously my business and my content creation is part of my alchemy, right? So I can make memes, or I make a post about it, or I share in my newsletter. So these are ways that I've alchemized and used creative expression. I was a painter. I am a painter, but I painted in college. That was my specialization because I had a major in art and communications. And so I'm using watercolors because they're easier now. So I do my painting, and I like to read and write poems, and I found all of these new ways and giving myself, well, number one, I had the space because I literally nothing else was working out. So it was the universe dropped the time to get it done and to explore this. All of these different ways, I noticed that again, I wasn't as reactive. I was being more calm, and my relationship exchanges, all that energy wasn't boiling underneath the surface anymore. I had moved it. If I feel sad now, if I wake up, number one, I meditate because I know that it's happening in my mind. So I need to get right in there right away. That's my first thing. And then number two, that energy just needs to move. So I choose a way. Maybe it is painting. Maybe it's going to the gym. Maybe it's going for a walk outside. Maybe it's not using the phone, and just walking, breathing in and looking around. Get present, be here now. But whatever it is, right away, I will use a tool boom. And the energy isn't going to turn into something even worse, because we don't have to let it go there. We don't have to let it expand. It's up to us to catch ourselves. It's not to not feel it or to bypass it. If you get angry, it's okay, feel it, but you don't need to create a story about it. You don't need to amplify it. You don't need to go tell 6 of your friends and build on it and build on it and build on it, because that's what we do sometimes unintentionally or unconsciously. When you're using creativity, it is so powerful because you're just going to move it. That's it. Like, it will shift. And lastly, beyond this kind of purification, like, you're prioritizing your own well-being. Instead of demanding that your relationships are the thing that make you feel better, you realize it's up to you to feel better. Your relationships can only add to the feelings that you're creating within yourself. Your relationships are an amplifier, actually, too. They're an amplifier, they're a mirror. And so what your relationships are going to do is amplify whatever's going on within you, for better or worse. So just know that that's the power and the beauty of especially conscious relationship. Like, when you're consciously, intentionally using your relationship as a vehicle for growth, then this is where it's at. It's going to show you everything you need to know. And the more committed you are to a relationship, knowing that it's being created through you, how you're perceiving that person is up to you. Therefore, it can change for the better, number one. And number two, it's your responsibility to do your part, right? Other people are going to show up how they're going to show up. Obviously, if it's really bad or someone's abusing you, like, that's a totally different conversation. Leave. If someone's abusing you, like, you don't need to be putting up with that. But that's something different. What I'm talking about is more of like the day-to-day mundane things that we all deal with, and then we're thinking that we're not powerful, that we're powerless, and that is simply not the case. You can create miracles in your relationships because when it's coming from you, I'm telling you, is I've experienced it with some of the most, I would say the most stressful and difficult relationships in my life. Every single one of them has transformed for the better. Like, I'm thinking of like 3 or 4 right off the top of my head, and they're all better. And I know that that's because I've planted new seeds. I've gone into my own mind, and I've started to change the way that I see the world. And therefore, these people are now showing up differently. So I won't make any promises. You got to try it for yourself. But I know that this works, because these are relationships with people that I thought might never change, but they did. And lastly, this process will help you strengthen your spiritual connection, because ultimately creativity is just like your direct channel to the divine. It's like your tuning in, opening up the gateway, opening up the portal, and you're like, all right, I'm here, I'm open, I'm a vessel, use me, move through me. That's it. It's like your direct connect to the universe, to source. And so ultimately because think about it, every creative person or every artist, when you're like, oh, where was the inspiration? They'll be like, I don't know, it just dropped in. I don't know, it's like I got a sign from God. It's like, oh, lightning bolt hit me and I came up with this amazing life's work, and it just happened just like that. Like, I don't know where it came from. It just hit me. And that's really how it is most of the time. And so when you're using creative expression as a way to alchemize, especially when it comes to your relationships, you're opening up your spiritual connection to receive more clear guidance, to hear your intuition more clearly, to more clearly interpret your inner guidance, and then apply that higher perspective, apply that love and wisdom to your relationships. So I am so excited. So I'm using The Artist's Way as the framework, because this book just is the bomb, you guys. It's so good. And if you're a creative person, especially if you are a person who wants to reclaim that artist, but you don't have to be an artist. Here's the thing. This is for anyone. If you feel called to this, it's for you. If you own the book and you haven't done it, yes, this is for you. It's a huge synchronicity. So the sales page is up with all the details. It's going to be a 12-week immersion because we're using the book, and that's a 12-week book. I'm going to weave in meditation. So I'm going to also be offering to you guys some of these special practices that I was talking about. You're going to have access to those, but you'll have a daily meditation, very simple and straightforward every day, short and sweet, like under 10 minutes. And then that will change each month. So you'll have one for the month. It'll make it really easy for you to do it. And then we'll move through week by week the modules in The Artist's Way. And then you've got me there, facilitating calls, and we'll have a Telegram group for the duration of the immersion. And also there's an option to do an upgrade with some one-to-one time for 2 calls. So there'll be 3 options. There'll be like an early bird, a general enrollment, and then the upgrade with the one-to-one. So I'm just really psyched because this really changed my life. From this process of going through the Artist's Way and my meditations, I was able to rebrand my business. I had this whole rebirth recently. Like I said, the meditation stuff fell on my lap at the right time. Just this whole new path started to open up. That's not by accident. You know what I mean? It's because I asked. It's because I showed up every day. And with those small, consistent steps and using creativity as a way, and also because I knew deep down I had a block around being an artist and really thriving as a creative. And that was something for me that was really important to get to the root of, because I know that I'm not going back to get a job, quote unquote. Like, it's not going to happen. This is what I'm meant to be doing. But I needed to move through that resistance. So if you're at a point in your life where you're hitting a plateau, you're in a void space, maybe you just lost a job, or you're going through a big change, or you'd like to, but you're terrified. And doing this type of work in a way that is creative appeals to you, because maybe you're tired of the therapy kind of stuff and the group therapy or the heavy lifting type of programs, and you're more interested in like a playful way and a more creative, playful excavation type of way to get to the root of what's going on and move through the resistance. So that's what this is going to be for. It's called Artistic Alchemy. Like I said, 12 weeks. We're going to start in September. The link to the sales page is in the notes, so you can check that out if you're interested. Enrollment will open at the end of the month. I'm starting off a bit early talking about this because I did just rebrand my whole business, so I figured give it a little more time. And also people are kind of coming back now from summer vacations and stuff. So that's the scoop. If you have any questions, you can always email me. And I'm just sending you guys so much love. Would love to have you inside. And otherwise, I'll see you on the next one.